Hello YouTube, this is Ahmed here, bringing you another Wargame European Archives. Okay, so in this episode we will be covering the Logistic, Recon and Support vehicles of NATO. Starting with Logistic, as before. Okay, now, compared to PAC, NATO has a wide range of command vehicles that serve a wide variety of purposes, but we'll start off with the basic one that you start off first with, the M151A1 command vehicle. This is similar to the packed command keeps, where it's the cheapest of the command vehicles is only 200, and you can field the most of this vehicle compared to the other armored units of armored command units of NATO. Its speed isn't that good, but it can go very far, so this can reach pretty much any command zone in the map you want to cover and get to another one as well if you need some backup. Of course, however, that being a command vehicle, it's only got 5 health points and does not have any armor at all. So for that reason, I definitely wouldn't recommend this on most maps, just because you're spending 200 points on a unit that's going to die quite quickly and easily to even a random artillery volley striking in its vicinity. So overall, these I'd recommend for use solely in large maps, where you can sort of put these in sections that you might not have been able to capture if you use the other command vehicles because of their limited availability. Okay, but let's move on to them. So, the next step is the unarmed command armor. This takes the form of the US M577, the West German M577 Key, and these are only 2 versions available. They both cost 200 points and they're identical in every way. 220 points. And yeah, so they go faster than the basic command vehicle, and they've got level 1 armor on all sides, apart from the front, which gets 2. However, the range is lower. So, but generally command vehicles aren't moving around too much, so this shouldn't be a problem on most maps. The disadvantage of these units is you can only field 2 of them per match, which means that on larger maps using these you can run out quite quickly, and that might make it hard to because you might have to choose which to capture and which to leave empty, which can be annoying. However, these are good and solid units. 220 is a fair price to pay for this kind of armor and its command vehicle. Then we move on to the armed and armoured command vehicles, which NATO has quite a lot of. The British FV-105 Sultan, the US M114A1, and the French VAB PC. Now, these differ quite a bit, so let's start off with the French one. It's quite expensive at 240, but it's incredibly fast at 90 kilometers an hour. This is quite useful as a command vehicle, as sometimes you might have to evacuate it in an emergency. Also, it has an excellent operational range, and it's a very maneuverable unit. You'll be able to move it from command point to command point as the battle's conditions change, so it's a very good maneuver warfare unit. It also has the general an M2 Brown on it to defend itself, although this generally won't save it too much, because if the enemy is attacking it, they'll probably field something that this won't be able to hold off. However, any armament is good armament. It also has 2,000 rounds, so you won't need to supply it in any situation, really. The disadvantage, however, is that it only has 1 armor in the front, nothing anywhere else, so this can still be quite vulnerable to attack and artillery barrages. It's quite a dangerous unit to use if you're not planning to use its maneuverability. The other ones would be recommended. So we'll move on to the M114A1. So this is actually cost the same as the unarmed command vehicles, but comes with the HMQ Brown, similar to the French VAB PC. However, as we can see when we compare it to the 2, it is distinctly worse. It is slower. Its optics, I think they're the same. Yeah, they're the same. However, its operational range is lower, so this thing might struggle to get to everywhere on the map at once. Overall, I wouldn't recommend it over the other 2, because you're sacrificing armor and range for the machine gun, and I wouldn't. That's not a sacrifice I'd make. I'd stick with armoured because these things cost a lot. You want to keep these safe. And then the British is a sort of compromise between the M114A1 and the VAB PC. It's got its own British general purpose machine gun. I don't think it doesn't have the same kind of range, but so it's got a shorter range, but it's got more firepower, which could make a difference. However, I don't think it would be wise to count on this because it's a 701 meter range. That's the same kind of range as RPGs. So if by the time it started to shoot at stuff, they're probably already planning to take it out. It's got 80 speed, which is quite good, but it has a pretty short range considering that kind of speed. Optics are normal, but still you'd want to have a recon with it to identify the problem. So this thing could run away from most threats because Warsaw Pact units tend to be slow. And again, front one, side one, so it's more armoured than the VAB PC. However, it's slower. So this would be a decent compromise, I'd say. But overall, I'd recommend using just the dedicated armoured command vehicles because you're only paying for what you'll most likely need. Then there's also the command helicopter, the UH-1A, because it's a helicopter. Obviously, it's got no armor, but it is very fast. So again, if you can give it time to take off before the enemy gets into range, this can get out of a situation much more easily than the VAB can. However, its operational range is only 300 kilometers, and that doesn't seem that good for a helicopter. So this could that's the thing. So while this would be good for a sort of an initial attack at one of the enemy's deployment zones in their rear, capturing it before they get the opportunity to, its poor operational range means that if you're using this for maneuver warfare, you're going to have to supply it a bit, and that could be annoying. Speaking of supplies, let's move on to the supplies. As again, the standard FOB that we discussed in the Warsaw Pact version, it's the same kind of idea. It's just got the stars and stripes fluttering from it. So you can only build these at the start of the game, but they're the best bang for your buck in terms of supplies. For supply trucks, for basic ones, we've got the MD Jupiter supply truck, 15.750 liters, quite slow, and won't be able to see a threat to it, and it's quite vulnerable. So overall, not that recommendable. Then you go for armored. So this costs twice as much as the MK Jupiter, but delivers twice the supplies, so you're still getting the same amount of supplies for your buck, but it's a bit faster, and it has armor and more health points. So yeah, overall this would be a good. So I definitely recommend the Hemet over the Jupiter. I think the advantage that the Jupiter has is that you can field a lot more than the Hemet. I think the Hemets are limited to 8. Trucks per game. I think the Jupiter has I think 16. So Jupiters you can bring them in a lot more, but the Hemets can carry more and are faster. They carry the same amount of supplies for the buck, as I keep saying. So but then NATO has a wide. Those are actually the only trucks that NATO has. It's a bit surprising, but they have a good range of supply helicopters. Well, let's start off with the French Puma. This is a very interesting supply helicopter. It only carries 1,000 liters of supplies. At 40, that's not that good. I mean, the Hemet, costs 10 less and carries 500 more. So this is a very inefficient way of carrying supplies. But its advantage is its speed. At 325 kilometers an hour, this is an amazingly fast supply helicopter. Very good for delivering emergency supplies for your units. They might, it's a case where they need it now rather than quite a bit later. Quite a specialist role, but I think the low capacity would probably, that's what would put me off it. Then we got the Canuck. This costs 60, so it's it carries the same amount as a Hemet, but it's costs twice as much, but it's very fast. And then the Super Canuck, which carries an extra 500 more, but costs an extra 15 more. So I don't think that's a good deal. I mean, you're paying like an extra Jupiter for it, but it's only carrying 500 rather than 720. So overall, and you're not getting any speed boost. So overall, I'd probably go for the Canuck as my supply helicopter, just because it's probably the most efficient supply carrier that NATO has. But overall, I'd still recommend a combination of HEMTs and Cubiters for your supply needs.